quorum. I will call the meeting for the Conservation Commission, April 2nd, open. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from March 19th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And we have no new public hearings tonight. We just have a continued public hearing for Belmont Street, map 13, lot 58. And I will call us open for that. And are we ready?
We're ready, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman. Thank you. Good evening, everyone on the commission, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Walter Hermano, for the record, professional engineer, Hermano Consultant Engineers. Tonight I'm representing Old Bridgewater Place, care of Mr. William Adams, who's sitting in the front row. We also have tonight our botanist, which is Mr. Ken Thompson. He's also in the front row. Last we met, we were to take a look at the design and see, going back to the drawing board, if we could pull back on the design somewhat to avoid two areas of impact in particular. On this side of the project over here, on this side of the project over here, and with some concession on behalf of the owner, without losing anything on the design except maybe for one parking spot, I was able to pull back, rearrange things, and avoid any impact in this area that I've circled in yellow. That was called one of the impact areas over there, and there was another one on this side, which is totally avoided as well. We have walls going up in each one of those locations. What we've done, in effect, we have eliminated proposed impact areas 3 and 4, and we have a reduction of the impact of 1,850 square feet. So I heard the board, and I think that was significant. I understand where the commission is coming from. We were able to eliminate the impacts in those two areas. The proposed mitigation, because we still have remaining impacts, which is the crossing, and two finger-like areas right here, impact area 5 and 2. Both of them are well below 500 square feet, and the road crossing itself is 2,752 square feet, but that hasn't changed. So we were able to reduce the mitigation area by eliminating mitigation area B, which was formerly down on this side. And although I've reduced the proposed mitigation, we still have a ratio of area proposed to be mitigated to the impacts, which is great. We were at 1.17 before to 1. Now we're at 1.38 to 1. So we've come down a little bit on what's proposed to mitigate. However, the ratio is still greater. We've held this area over here for mitigation, as well as on the crossing, which is a dirt road. That area will be mitigated as well. Those remain as the mitigated areas. So we have a current proposed taken of 3,137 square feet. If you can remember before, we were just a little under 5,000 square feet, so we've substantially reduced that. Proposed mitigation is 4,318 square feet. There was a concern about snow removal areas. Commission pointed out that we have a fence here, and we also had snow removal proposed in that area. We've now moved that over here to a grass area between the common building and one of the apartments. I also removed a snow removal area down in this area because I felt it was basically got to sit on the slopes and go right into the wetlands. And that area is now up on this side, which is the opposite of this proposed building, the common building. So we have another green space, and there's some snow removal to be in that area as well.
So you push the snow in there, and if it gets high enough, you haul it
I'll
out.
take it out of there, sure.
One thing that the client, applicant, Mr. Adams wanted to point out, Chairman, you brought up a good point about salt. He has a lot of proposed concrete surfaces around the building. He's not gonna be using salt on them. It'll be a suitable substitute, or maybe just sand, I'm not sure which yet. But I didn't wanna leave the commission with the impression that we're using salt everywhere on the project. It would be foolish to use the salt on the concrete, because it doesn't react well and it will destroy the concrete. The other areas to be salted would include a mixture, it'd be sand and salt, and that's out of necessity for safety. If the commission has no questions right now on the changes that I've made, I'd like to give Mr. Thompson an opportunity to introduce himself and explain the mitigation plan that he's put together that I tried to present last week but didn't do it justice. Here we have Mr. Ken Thompson, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Ken Thompson. I'm a botanist, soil scientist. Working in the field about 30-something years now. Done some big mitigations, small mitigations. And this one, basically, it's a very shallow landscape, so it'll be easy to excavate down to an elevation to support the water on this one. And all the plantings and everything are designed to Army Corps standards, 10-foot on center for trees. I choose to use larger trees, the 6+ foot, because of that New England wetland mix that's available. I actually don't like the thing, because it gets too tall and kills all the small stuff before they get going. So, but it's the only option out there. That or I just put down annual variety and let the natives go in, which I prefer to do. But for permitting purposes, I'll do the wet mix. The shrubs are calculated 8 foot on center, and I'll move around and group them into groups of wildlife habitat. It's all connected to the same wetland, and I got the largest area down here. We're going to remove the roadway up on top. We'll stabilize them, plant up in there. 2-year monitoring program, photos, plots. Mitigation, like on this one, I got an invasive problem. I got that false glossy buckthorn, or European buckthorn, I like to call it. I got a tree wrench in there before we excavate and get it out of all the, the impact areas and the mitigation areas. You yank them out, then all the roots, I'll cut everything off at ground level and then excavate roots and everything, pile them off. We need additional soil, so we'll bring in some leaf mulch. I've done that in Nyanza. We 300 cubic yards of it. It's contaminated soils. We got rid of everything. It was all bound in the organics. And we took it down to where the soil was clean and then started building back up. So what we did was just mix it with material we had on site. It's functioning pretty good right now. Don't build islands. Muskrats eat holes. They dig through them and they sink like Swiss cheese. But so I have to report you within 90 days of September, basically. I'll do all my monitoring beforehand. Still don't know it, but I'm gonna make sure it works right. It's gardening. That's how you make these things work. I have to go out there several times a year, to, especially in the first year, make sure it's established, make sure the kids are out of it, ATVs are out of it. If invasives are coming up, I'm gonna remove them. I don't like using herbicides and those guys. If I can yank it out, we'll remove them at the end of every season for the first 2 years anyways. I don't promise that they won't come back in, but if I get it established enough, there's a competition thing, just like a purple loosestrife. You get in there, then the competition's complete. It's not a one wash. The loosestrife comes through. But in this one, it's the buckthorn. So, hey, how can I help you?
I know I have to lean to my expert, because
How much soil do you expect to have to bring in? I mean, I know until you actually get on site and find out what's...
I haven't done the calculation. I can't even do that volume calc. I'll ask the engineer, and then it's that 30%, 38% more soil, And if they're taking the loom off the top here, that's a definite source. You know what I mean? Maybe supplement it a little bit, but I don't believe a lot of soil's gonna come on the site, you know what I'm saying? I'll use that loom up on top, and once it wets down, it will kill anything that's in it. Again, remove the invasives beforehand with a tree wrench and just yank them out of the ground. But if I need it, it'll be composted leaf mulch.
John, any questions?
If you could, Ken, give the commission, you've talked about all your experience, but can you give the commission a example of one of your projects that you were heavily involved, let's say, to restore or replicate an area?
Diane's a Superfund site.
What's that?
Diane's a Superfund site. I worked on it for 3 years, so hand in hand with the Army Corps of Engineers. We removed 5 acres of contaminated soil and built a pond, swamp, red maple swamp, islands, a marsh area. Then we chased the contamination downstream, and it was 8 acres along one of the rivers nationally. And we had to remove 3 acres of floodplain. And quite an experience. It was a good experience. I designed an acre and a half for a hospital, a removal up at Fort Devens, where they took out, they pushed a hospital down the hill on the Army base. We went out and pulled the hospital back out, and it was an acre and a half of impact. I got several half-acre ones, Mullins, over in Holbrook. It hasn't been built, but there was a change in the Army Corps, so we went in and did the impacts and filled the roadway to gain access to the back. And we had to replace a half acre because we filled isolated land subject to, not isolated vegetative wetlands for the Corps. 5 years monitoring. That's why I bring up the ATVs. I've been gone 2 years. It looks like a mud pit. They love my hole. The trees that we piled around it rotted away, and they are now riding through it like it wasn't anything. This is a shame.
As far as this project goes, what is your recommendation for starting the work on the restoration work? When, in the overall scheme of
It
things,
should be done immediately, kind of deal. before-
because of trying to get access in there?
Access before they come in and build all this stuff. We have to remove all that material in there, stockpile it. I'd rather get it into a hole instead of keeping it on site and just watering it, making them bring in a water truck and water it. I mean, it's one of the first things that happens. You build silt fence down below, you come in and excavate, you make your material, put it back in, let it settle a little bit for a few weeks, see where it ends up, maybe regrade it if you have to. You know, the pit and mountain, this stuff, the organics, you know, you fluff it up, it's gotta settle back in. That's why I say my report's about 4 inches. And then, just before planting, we'll regrade it, and then get in there, and then I'll put silt fence along there, and then get out of their way, you know, and then we'll come in and plant it. Early season or in the fall, you know, before the end of the season. But it's more, do all the land grading first. Right. When they open that up, I'll be there for all grading operations. They open that, if I can, you know, stabilize the banks a little better with some, you know, a log piece or some stone from the side, or, you know, just it's gonna be a flow. There's a flow through here. I don't know who dug it. Somebody worked hard to dig those pipes out of the ground. That wasn't water that did that. And they're like, you know, flipped up. So, restore the flow through. It's damming, overflowing, eroding that roadway now. So clean that up and get it all back cleaned up there. Build that crossing. At that point, I mean, we already have the heavy machines over. By that point, there'll be some matting or something, and we'll excavate that area out. That's the goal, you know. Get in there first, get the dirt work done, stabilize it, and then when appropriate, plant it. All in the same season, though, you know, not 2 years down the road or anything like that. Monitoring doesn't start until I'm done.
I have nothing further.
Nothing for me. No.
I think we're almost there. you have anything for the engineering side of it?
No,
Other questions?
no.
All right. Hearing no more, then I will entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Motion to close.
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And
Issue in 21 days?
And a motion to issue the order of conditions in 21 days.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
And we don't have to do the bylaw waiver because this doesn't apply. So, at that point, we're all set.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
before you leave, so, Mr. Adams brought in a conservation restriction for the Ames Drive parcel, and it's been signed, and I will notarize it, and I'm recommending that the commission, this is a different site, I just want to make sure, Ames Drive over off of South Street. I'm recommending that the commission vote to have your chairman, Tim Hay, sign it on your behalf, and then it can be picked up on Thursday and recorded.
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion that you would sign.
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good luck.
Hey, Peter, how are you?
And next on our agenda, we have 55 Crescent Street, review documents in order to record a revised conservation easement.
55, did you say?
Yeah.
I'm recommending that that be put on the agenda for whatever my meeting report said. I think the,
521.
yes, thank you. I got to get to it.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Move.
21,
Five.
you said 21?
521.
Yeah, 521.
Have a good night.
Yes,
Good
good
night.
night.
May. Okay, we have a request to continue Luke Drive hearing to May 7th. I will entertain a motion to continue.
I'll make the motion.
Moves in second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Moved. I have a request to continue the 0 South Street hearing until May 21st.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Moved. I might be out of here early, guys.
Down in the nitty-gritty here.
Okay, basically it's administrative discussions, and I believe propose official response thanking Mr. Tuck for his offer for purchasing, but we politely declined at this point. Um,
I'm recommending.
Send a letter.
Recommending Kitty send a letter saying we're not interested, and probably should add the thank you that you just mentioned too. Very short and sweet, but thank you, but no thanks, type of letter.
Nice thought.
You mean I can't get both for both?
Well,
And modeling and coddling?
you don't have to use the same words that I did there, but in general. you
In
can-
general terms, we'll,
Who could whack?
The sad part is that there's no egress to it.
Mm. Yeah, number 8.
and various planning, but I don't know whether anybody else read the planning board minutes?
I
that came
did.
across? Yeah, there were a lot to
Well, I
decipher all
look
at
at-
once.
Yeah.
I know they had mentioned relooking at some of the bylaws, and I know, John, you'd mentioned in the past that thinking about the squares that they're dealing with,
Yes.
and if they're opening it up to relook at it, do we need to approach them at this time, or ask them to consider making that square outside of any jurisdiction?
What it is in a nutshell is the planning board, or the bylaw is that every lot that's created in town has to have a, what they call a building square that will fit between the lot lines. And it's primarily used to prevent the gerrymandering of lots where they go off at weird angles, and when Luke Estates was proposed, where the lots basically had just enough upland to get the house on and some grading, the building squares fit in there all right, but majority of the building square turns out to fall into the wetlands or the 50-foot buffer. And so my recommendation at that time, and we kind of tabled it, but was to require that the building square not be in the wetlands or within the 50-foot buffer. And so that 100 by, I think it's 100 by 100, but don't quote me, I'd have to go back and find it. But by having that building square, it gives every person who now purchases a lot in West Bridgewater to have enough room for the house, the setbacks, the minimum setbacks from the street, a septic system, a pool, a shed, a garden, a swing set, and enough lawn for kids to play in, instead of having them run out the back door and 10 feet later they're into the 50-foot buffer and they can't theoretically use it. If that were the case, probably 90% of the violations of people disturbing the 50-foot buffer after they move in and they're there for a few years will disappear because they've got more than enough room. And so what I would propose is that if the commission's interested, that at their next meeting, although the warrant for the next town meeting is going to close very shortly, and I don't know if that would leave enough time for us to propose it and get it before the planning board and have the planning board hold a public hearing on it, because it is a zoning type thing. And probably we would want to do it at either a special town meeting sometime in the fall or next annual town meeting. But if we don't keep talking about it, it will always be a last minute item and we'll say, oh, well, we can't get it in. So the sooner the better, I think. And if you're interested, I'll put it all together again and we can have it on the agenda for the next meeting. And that way I can,
What's a shot trying to, I mean, they brought it up
Planning
as.
board
wanting
brought
to-
it up.
Yeah, it was in their minutes that they were looking to open up the possibility of making some changes.
and if they do it, and we don't have to, then that's fine, because
Yeah.
that means they're supporting it and we don't have to go and try to make a case in front of them. So if they do it, that would be fine.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great, I'm not sure
Right,
that
it sounds like
would
a-
be without objection.
What
from
would be the
people, but-
opposition to something like that? I mean, what would be why wouldn't anybody want to do that?
Well,
I don't
the
understand. I
way it
mean,
is now.
So
is it
on
just so
Luca
you can
Estates,
get more square footage? Would that
more
be?
lots, on Luca Estates,
So
for
for
example, if they used
construction.
it,
Yeah.
instead of getting, and I can't remember the exact number, but let's say 8 lots, they would have only got 6, let's say.
Oh,
So the opposition to that kind of thing is that you're taking away the right of a landowner to maximize their development potential on the land. Of course,
but for
On-
future owners, you're protecting them from.
I think it would be challenged.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think? there'd be
I
a
don't
lot?
think so, but it may not be something that people who are pro-development would want to support, so they might voice their concerns. But I think any person who's moved into a subdivision who now has restrictions on
Right.
what they
I
can
mean,
do
We're
in their
gonna
back.
start enforcing the regulated
Yeah,
areas
there
more
wouldn't
and
be all
more.
these
so-
wrestling matches we go through
Right.
all the
Right.
time.
I think they would be supportive.
Yeah, people
and
would
say-
be better informed as to
Right, it
what they own.
Save us in the
Yeah.
process of having to
I think it makes
put all these
people.
restrictions on each individual lot if the
Right.
developer from the beginning
Right.
knew that.
Absolutely.
Oh, certainly
Yeah.
well
Yeah,
worth,
so-
I think, even, I don't know if we could get it into this.
We could try, and
Yeah.
I'll
Try,
check that
yeah.
all out, but I could put it, if we put it on the agenda for the next meeting, at least we can talk about it, and then by then I'll know deadlines and see if it's even feasible to get it in this year, but if it isn't, if we can't, then there's no reason why we can't have it all set up and
Ready to
prepared to
go.
pull the trigger
Right.
as soon as we hear about a special town meeting, or if that's not appropriate, at the next annual town meeting.
Because we have two examples that came right in front of us where contractors came in, tried to build 6 and ended up, or 8 and ended up with 3 or 4. So, I mean, we're actually saving them time if we tell them, this is what
Right
we
up
have
front,
and this is
yeah.
what you get, you know?
Instead of going through the whole process.
Instead of doing this, coming back 100 times to, you know, put somebody in the
Waivers,
wetlands.
yeah. All right.
I think it's a
Yeah.
great idea.
If you could do that.
Sure.
Would be. The only other thing I noticed in the minutes, and I'm not sure, and I only noticed it because Parker's Way subdivision, one lot, looks like was being proposed. That come before us under the town stormwater bylaw?
If they disturb more than 15,000 square feet, we have to have in constructing Parker's Way or the house that might be on a new
Yeah.
lot on Parker's Way, then they would have to.
Where is Parker's Way? Where is that?
It-
Yeah, it looked like there may be a building coming down and one going up. I don't know the exact square footage, but it was one of those that it wasn't outside of all of our wetland jurisdiction,
Mhm.
but I knew with the new stormwater bylaw that
Right.
that one,
Oh, yeah. I
we just
remember
had to be
seeing
more
that.
aware of
Yes.
stuff, and that was an example of
Right.
a question that I don't know what the square footage was.
So it's near where the apples are sold on East Street.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Oh, okay.
So the stormwater bylaw, if it's 5,000 square feet up to 15,000 square feet, we can issue what I call, or not what I call, but the bylaw calls administrative permit, which means that it doesn't have to have a public hearing. It has real basic conditions of approval, and it gets signed and recorded into our log. And they have to abide by those basic conditions. 15,000 square feet or above, it needs to have a general stormwater permit, public hearing, advertising and all, the regular thing. And then the conditions are imposed, whether there's wetlands or not, there's conditions that are imposed.
Now, was the building inspector gonna be the one catching these, or do we
Yeah, I was
just
just
have
gonna, I was
to
just gonna ask that.
do our
What's-
homework and
what's
be
the-
on it and
The building inspector is very supportive of having all the regulatory departments say it's okay to issue a building permit before he does. So we always get notified if it's something that's like a deck or a shed or something that's of no importance, we give the go-ahead, just with the office process. If it needs more than that, then it gets relayed to the applicant for the building permit that you have to get file a notice of intent, have the wetlands flagged, whatever. And we have a monthly regulatory department meeting where the regulatory boards and departments sit down and they talk about new projects coming in, and if there's any immediate concern, everybody's aware of it right off the bat, so that nobody's issuing permits unless everybody's on board. So it's working pretty well.
Yeah, good.
And so we may have an occasional situation where somebody is doing something without permits with the building department, electrical inspector, plumbing, whatever, and eventually somebody hears about it, and then we go back and take care of it.
Yeah, this one just jumped out at me because the way the planning board minutes read, they were having to increase the size of the driveway because it was now
A two-lot.
2 lot, and to get emergency vehicles and vehicles passing each other. And I just wanted to make sure that the amount of disturbance and changes and drainage and all that wasn't going to fall into
Looked at it
anything.
a lot more closely than I did.
John, does the.
I actually get a lot out of the planning board
flood
minutes,
zones
so
in
I
general
read them.
have
I
protections in
enjoy
there?
it, see what's
They
going
have
on,
protections,
but,
so
yeah.
say, I know, then.
So I just,
Yeah.
not that we need
now
more
we
work
look
to
at
do, but I
issue,
said,
but
if we can
if the
catch
wetland
things
isn't
before
there,
somebody
and
comes to us
there's
and
an
says, well, why
issue
did
with
this one
flood?
get to go in? And
That
do we-
makes it
is there
easier.
protections, is
Yeah.
there markers, is there something that people, so they know what that they're near or would be subject to?
Almost every permit that we now issue has conservation markers that appear along the 50-foot buffer or the edge of the wetland if it's a, let's say, an old existing lot that's lawn right up to the edge of the woods, and the woods is the wetland. They get the markers along there, but yes.
Yeah.
And 188 Matfield Street, the one where we did the request for determination recently and issued it, we had, one of the conditions is putting up the markers. And the gentleman came in
Yeah.
today and picked them up, and so even on determinations, we're getting the
Right.
markers.
Oh, good, good.
This last hearing we just had, that was, that slipped my mind, but I assume there are markers around that property.
Because it's a 40B,
Outside of the town bylaw.
we can't,
Can't
Can't.
require it.
I don't understand how
That's
that
why
works.
we don't have any. Although we've got a fence. you
But
know.
yours came in before we even.
So that's just an
Stockade fence
incentive for the
that,
builder,
any of
that
the
just gives
around
them,
the,
that's just
makes it
incentivized
easier
for them
and
to put in
right.
some cheaper,
That may have
or,
been done to protect.
Yeah,
that
like a
specifically
more
as
reasonable.
part of it.
smoother
Yeah.
process
Mm.
so that they don't have to get bogged down.
That's interesting that they would let that slide in the rules and regulations, but.
Discussion on raising our delineation fee. We had mentioned
The-
last week.
The
last
question
meeting.
was, did we vote for it?
I don't think so.
We did.
No,
'cause
we
we-
didn't? Okay.
And then
Because we have to do a public hearing for that, don't we? Do we have to advertise? for that?
yes, that's true, thank you.
Right. I was gonna say, I think that's where we were
Yeah.
at, was at this
Okay.
meeting, we were gonna
We-
make a
I
decision to,
And how much,
Unofficially, we
and what
agreed.
exactly you were going to have in the public hearing. Like,
right.
So
Is it just
it'll go
that
from
one
2 to
item?
3. Would we exempt septic upgrades? You know, where people have to spend all that money to put in a new septic system.
I think we, yeah.
For septic repairs or replacements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Upgrades, yeah.
Okay, and then, what is the extra money going to?
Oh, yeah, we were thinking about maybe putting something aside or asking for skim milk for, is that what you meant?
Yeah.
Or something in, you know,
In
not
that
particularly
type
that one,
of,
but yeah, that type of,
Um,
but we didn't know how we were gonna,
Right.
what
Come up
line
with
we were
what-
gonna, yeah.
Where's it going now into our,
General
General,
budget,
yeah,
And it's for $2. If
Yeah.
so-
Right, the $2 delineation fee goes just
the
into the
general
general fund.
So they would still get their $2 and the
But on
extra
top of that, we would be looking for $1
to go for.
to go
for
For
whatever we,
special-
towards
whatever's coming.
Environmental
conservation maintenance
projects?
fund,
Yeah.
or conservation environmental.
can we do that? Can we vote $1? So $2 goes to the general fund. We
Right,
don't
for the
see that.
delineation fee.
Right.
And an additional
I see.
$1, so it'll be a $3 delineation fee,
For
so
about
$2
We
going.
could decide to do that.
Right.
Which is appropriate with towns around us, right? Because we did already
Right.
looked at that,
Yeah,
that
that's
value,
good.
yeah.
All right.
so,
And again, we can and have and are allowed to waive or alter the fee
Right,
if we need to.
Hardship.
I mean, or if there's reason to.
yeah.
yeah,
But
for just
Right,
causes, you can
right.
waive it, and
Is it,
So-
is it generally that's the rate around us
yes,
or more perhaps?
for
Yeah.
towns with bylaws.
Right, yeah.
If they don't have a bylaw, then it's just the state rate.
Which is 2.
So would you call that to go, the dollar is to go for a specific stewardship?
Special environmental projects, which would include maintenance, or if you had to put up a, what?
Or a
So it
kiosk
would
sign.
Could be
A
dealing with
Yeah,
invasive
kiosk.
plants.
A kiosk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do invasive removal. So
Maintenance
if we
even?
call it
Some
special
kind of-
environmental project, I think it's kind of
Broad
general.
enough, but narrow
Yeah.
enough. I
Well,
mean,
you know how we were always looking for people to take care of, maintain stewardships for
right,
things?
I mean,
If you had a little stipend, or if you had a little something, you can encourage that kind of, you know.
I mean, trail maintenance and repairs, I mean,
Construction.
we end up with Scotland Acres doing something down there, we may need.
Mhm.
Hey,
Fun stuff.
you used the new.
Yeah.
I'm trying.
I knew exactly what he meant too.
I like it.
Scotland Acres.
Called it Green
Okay.
Acres. Although most people aren't old enough to know what that is.
Do you have time to do a sort of a draft idea of what would go into the paper for an legal ad? And when would we be setting this hearing for?
So probably the soonest I could do that would be Thursday, and
We just put it on for the first one in May.
We have to do it after Scotland. It's too much before
That's what I'm
that.
saying, after, so first,
Scotland, it'll be Scotland acres, literally.
first meeting in May, give us time to get it worded and posted and put in the paper.
Scotland, the country, you mean?
Yeah.
I think you're right, we should wait until after Scotland, the country.
And do you have anything, speaking of Scotland, on either enforcement order updates?
So the first meeting in May, is that?
Yes.
so- Sometimes I go back and I review the
tapes.
The tape, just to
Yeah.
make sure I get everything. All right, 153, the engineer who turned in the project for 373 Crescent Street is working on 153 Scotland Street. And he informed me when he turned in the plans for a new filing that's coming up, that he's now working on 153. So that's about as much as I've got an update at this point. The neighbor who purchased the house next door wants to come in, I believe it's April 24th, if that's a evening meeting, night here at Town Hall. If it's a Wednesday night, I think it was, he wants to come in and look it over with me and I'll explain to him. But on 373, as my report indicates, we have now a new filing. It's going to be a notice of intent, stormwater management permit application. And so we're moving ahead. That may take a couple of meetings because just a quick review of the plan, it seems as if there are a few things that need to be tweaked on it to make it work. And they're going to have to show some mitigation for disturbing the 50-foot buffer and a small portion of wetlands out there. So that's the update on that.
Kitty, do you have anything for us to sign?
Well, I only have one little thing today.
One little thing?
Yes, just one little thing. And then we're all done.
Does anybody else have anything?
And it looks as if by the minute hand up there, we're going to be out before midnight. I got to remember to bring a battery for
Battery.
that. It's not like we're the only ones that use this one.
Yeah.
Right. Nobody has anything else. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye. Yippee.
So moved.
What time is it?
It is 7:09,
Wow,
and we're off.
that's impressive.